TurboViews has been going on for over 8 years, and now it's time for a little R&R. Over the years, many new subscribers have jumped on board as the TurboViews train keeps chugging along. In fact, the goal of reviewing every single officially released US TurboGrafx game is getting darn near complete. But some of my favorite games on the system were reviewed over 5+ years ago. And if you didn't crawl deep into the TurboViews playlist, you might never even know about them. Let's revisit and add some extra commentary to Air Zonk, TurboViews episode number 2, all the way back from late 2008 when TurboViews didn't even exist yet. Okay, let me take you back to 1992. Yours truly, a huge video gamer, loves his TurboGrafx, right? Is excited for the release of Air Zonk, and during its launch week was there to buy it. I can tell you the truth, I know it wasn't on launch day, but it was within a week, in 92, I had my Air Zonk. And I remember it well because I was excited for it. I had read about the game for so long, you know? And when it finally arrived, it was great. It was also one of those early games from TTI, you know, the Turbo Duo era, where there were no CD jewel cases with the turbo chips. Instead, it was just the box with a plastic tray, and the turbo chip sat in the middle with the manual on top. So when you would pick those games up at the store, they felt very light. You almost felt like it was empty. It was a game that a lot of my friends would play also. When my buddies would come over, they would always gravitate to my TurboGrafx because, you know, they didn't have it. Nobody had it. In fact, I have some old video footage here of my friend Don playing Air Zonk, and that is literally a very common scene back in 92. He loved the game, as did I, and we played it all the time. Obviously, Air Zonk is a spin-off of Bonk, which was essentially the mascot of the TurboGrafx. The Bonk games are synonymous with that system. And this was kind of a futuristic update to that. When they were trying to restructure the image of the TurboGrafx with the whole Turbo Duo thing, they were going for something futuristic and exciting and new. I give them credit for taking a chance by altering their popular platformer series to a cute 'em up, really. And it's a funny story related to the character. In Electronic Gaming Monthly, they had a contest. Name the new mascot. Name the futuristic Bonk. And you could send in your submissions. And I'll tell you what, I wrote a bunch of ideas down, and I brainstormed, and I remember sending those off in the mail. I didn't think I would win, but it didn't matter. It was a lot of fun. But I have to confess, when I found out that the person who won submitted the name Zonk, I don't know, I was like, what? I mean, it's cool, but they took the B and made it a Z, and they won. Not that mine were any better, but I mean, oh well, I'll get over it one of these days. Anyway, so that's about it. As far as the review itself, it's funny looking back on some of your past work. You know, you always wish you could change things, but I mean, the content is what I would have written today, but the pacing's a little different, and it sounds like my nose is plugged, as if I'm deliberately putting my hand around my nose. I don't know what the hell that was about, but this particular review, I remember I lost the original high-quality master way back then. Something happened, the computer crashed, and so the video quality here is not as good as some of the other episodes. Now, if you don't know, there is a sequel called Super Air Zonk, which I also reviewed in TurboViews a long time ago. We're not going to revisit it here in Random Rerun, but if you like, you can find it in the TurboViews playlist. That game is a little bit disappointing, sadly. Even though it is a super CD, I was expecting it to be a little better than it was, and to be honest, I still think the first Air Zonk is superior. So, but I have to admit, I have a slight nostalgic feeling with Super Air Zonk because I got that game when it was brand new. You know, that was at a time when Turbo Zone Direct, which I still have some catalogs for, was still selling games. And I remember I picked up a lot of my Turbo Duo Super CD games from them, which is awesome because a lot of places weren't carrying them by that time. And I remember being pretty excited to get Super Air Zonk in the mail. Yeah, so definitely revisit that if you like. So, without further ado, let's listen to and watch Air Zonk, a review from over 8 years ago now. In 1992, when the TurboGrafx became the Turbo Duo and NEC was replaced with Turbo Technologies, the goal was to restructure the image of the console. Air Zonk was one of the initial games released during this transitional phase. Where Bonk had been the previous mascot, Zonk would now take his place. He was much hipper, more futuristic, and way cooler than his predecessor. I mean, come on, he's got sunglasses for God's sakes. Zonk was used in many of the Turbo Duo ads as well as on the Duo box itself, so they were definitely not messing around. The good news about all of this hype? Zonk's first game is pretty darn great. Unlike Bonk's side-scrolling platform nature, Air Zonk is side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. I've actually heard the game referred to as a cute-'em-up before. Yeah, that's very appropriate. This cute design gives the game a wonderful personality. There are also some Bonk's Adventure references, such as collecting smiley faces for points or the familiar pods that hold power-ups. Zonk's shooting mechanics are very similar to others in the same genre. You have a small little firing pistol and a backfire that automatically takes out enemies from behind. Zonk also has a special weapon that can be charged up and released. He can also drop down a huge missile for a giant screen-chewing explosion. Now all of these are great, but I can describe in 3 words what makes Air Zonk stand out above the rest. Power-ups, power-ups, power-ups. Power-ups. Oh, well, I guess it's 4 words. The game has a boatload of power-ups, available by collecting air bones scattered throughout the stage, and they're all a lot of fun, such as homing missiles, bear traps, boomerangs, and my personal favorite, the deck of cards that spreads across the entire screen. All of these are extremely powerful, and each also comes with its own special attack. Zonk can also become tiny, which makes him harder to hit and adds an extra shot to his firepower. But that's not all. Another awesome feature of this game is the ability to team up with various characters who, yes, are also wearing sunglasses. Very cool. Collecting the large smiley faces call forth a friend who aids you by constantly shooting missiles at enemies. At times, this character will also sacrifice him or herself by committing suicide on your behalf. Wow, now that's a true friend. The second time you collect a giant smiley face, you will merge, becoming invincible for a short time and adopting that character's special power, such as Moo-Moo's giant milk bombs, Rip's powerful bark, and Power Dump's flamethrower. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Bob's baseball move since it takes so long between pitches, but you can't win them all no matter how cool you are. At the beginning of the game, you can choose to let the computer randomly pick a character for you in each stage, which is the default setting, or you can select one of the 11 on your own. You can also go at it alone, but what's the fun in that? The graphics are extremely colorful, and the layers upon layers of multi-scrolling backgrounds are just fantastic. You'll notice some Bonk series references as well, with similar backgrounds and enemies. The bosses are all rather large, multi-layered, and, well, some are kind of strange. A giant pizza? Yep. The music and sounds are pretty good for a turbo chip. I've always been someone who believes if you're humming the tunes after playing the game, then they did a pretty good job with the music, and well, that happened here. Zonk has very responsive controls, and the firing never stops. At the beginning of each stage, you lose whatever power-up you had previously, but the balance doesn't seem to be too difficult, and eventually you'll get a new power-up anyway. There is a little slowdown, but nothing to hinder your enjoyment of the game. One thing Air Zonk does suffer from is a bit of imbalance with the levels. The first 4 are very long, with a mini-boss halfway and an end boss at the end, but none of them are really a huge challenge. Stage 5, however, is absolutely crazy, as you not only have to fight through numerous stages, but you have to battle King Drool's crony number 1, crony number 2, all of the end bosses you fought previously, both cronies together, Drool in his hovercraft, and Drool in his final form. Man! While there are unlimited continues, if you die, the game sends you back to the beginning of the stage. The good news is that if you can get to Drool's final mode, the game will give you 9 lives to defeat him. You can also increase the game's difficulty by choosing sweet, spicy, or bitter from the configuration screen, which also alters the number of lives Zonk starts with. I loved Air Zonk when it first came out, and I still love it today. It has such a unique personality and a fun overall structure. The only issues I have with it are balance problems with the final level and a rather short game length, but there is an addictive quality to it that I just can't explain. I think most of it revolves around the awesome power-ups and the unique characters. It's just plain addicting, and I just can't get enough of this game for some odd reason. So, Zonk's first adventure gets 4.5 turbo chips out of 5.